So, very welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by welcome Foreign Secretary James Cleverly to Almedalen. James, it's really good to have you here, and it feels great to be able to welcome such an important partner and friend of Sweden to the island of Gotland. We truly appreciate and value our close relationship with the United Kingdom, and we look forward to becoming NATO allies as well. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine was a historic turning point for European and global security. Russia's actions are a brutal attack, not just on Ukraine, but on international law and principles that are the foundation of the European security order. The Kremlin's aggression has had repercussions beyond the war in Ukraine. It has led to a strong unity in support of Ukraine and against Russia, but also to Sweden abandoning more than 200 years of military non-alignment and applying to join NATO. On May the 18th last year, Sweden took the historic step to apply for membership in NATO together with Finland. And on July the 5th, we both achieved invitee status, approved by all allies. As of today, 29 of NATO's 31 member states have ratified Sweden's application for membership. Only Turkey and Hungary remain. Sweden has agreed to a trilateral memorandum with Turkey, where the struggle against terrorism is one of the most important parts. New legislation has recently entered into force in Sweden that makes it illegal to participate in a terrorist organization in any way that promotes, strengthens or supports it. We are thereby delivering on the last part of our agreement. Sweden fully supports Turkey against all threats to its national security and condemn all terrorist organizations, including the PKK, which carry out attacks against it. We are living in an increasingly dangerous world. Alongside state actors, terrorists and violent extremists also pose a serious threat. Sweden has been under a heightened terrorism threat since 2010. Tackling that threat, it requires intensive national and international efforts. Sweden's new enhanced legislation will facilitate our cooperation with Turkey, as well as with other NATO and EU countries. Sweden stands ready to be an active and loyal ally and to contribute to the security of the entire alliance from day one. We have a strong defense and stand ready to contribute to NATO's enhanced forward presence in the Baltic Sea region, air policing and other operations. Sweden's accession to NATO has been the main topic in my discussions with Foreign Secretary Cleverly. I have conveyed our gratefulness for the United Kingdom's quick ratification of our application to join the alliance and the strong signal that Sweden should be a NATO member before the summit in Vilnius. Once again, very welcome to Sweden, to Gotland, to Visby. James, please, the floor is yours.
Tobias, thank you. Thank you very much. I should probably call you by your formal title, Foreign Minister Billström, but it is a genuine pleasure to have the opportunity to join you here in Sweden, in Gotland, in this amazing venue. I've had press conferences in some quite impressive buildings, but I think, without fear of contradiction, this is the most fascinating backdrop. And of course, it reflects on your country's history, a seafaring nation, a trading nation, a nation which has proven to be a strong and reliable friend to the United Kingdom, just as we very much believe ourselves to be a strong and reliable friend to you. Russia's illegal, unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, of course, is now the backdrop to so much of our thinking. It reminds us of the importance of strong, reliable friendships. And we have all seen the huge revolution that has taken place because of the violence, the changes which in just a few years, changes which just a few years ago no one thought possible. As you say, your own country has set aside many, many decades of neutrality to apply to join NATO, and I'm very proud that UK has been a passionate and vocal supporter of your accession process. The UK's position is clear, my position is clear, that Sweden must and shall join NATO and should do so as soon as possible. This remains the UK's position. We recognise the huge steps that you as a country have taken to address the concerns of some of the existing allies within NATO. And the UK very much is confident when we say that all NATO allies will be made safer by Sweden's joining of our alliance, just as we believe that Sweden will become safer as an ally within NATO. So we will continue to push for the speedy completion of your accession process. We look forward to the flag-raising ceremony, shortly followed by Sweden's hard work as a friend and ally within that formal organisation. Your leadership on the issue of supporting Ukraine as the EU president has been exemplary. We noticed the recent announcement of a support package, and we pay tribute to the commitment to Ukraine's recovery and reform that the President Ursula von der Leyen set out at the recent Ukraine Recovery Conference in London. It shows once again that the UK, both bilaterally with Sweden in our relationship with the EU, intends to remain a strong and committed European partner, notwithstanding our departure from the European Union. And we know the value that you bring because, of course, we work closely and regularly with you as partners in the Joint Expeditionary Force, the JEF. And I look forward to visiting HMS Belos later on this week and seeing firsthand the Swedish Navy at work in the Baltic. We discussed earlier on how we find that we have so much in common, so many areas where we are in natural alignment. And we will continue to find ways of working together to enhance our mutual prosperity and security, including, of course, on the difficult issue of illegal migration, which affects not just our two countries, but of course many other countries in Europe as well. So there is commitment at the very highest levels to ensure that this partnership stays strong. That's why our respective prime ministers signed a joint leadership statement setting out the steps that we will take to ensure the UK-Sweden relationship is strong well into the future. I am here today to reinforce that message and continue with that work, and it's a pleasure to join you on this wonderful island. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, James. Well, now we'll open up the floor for a few questions, please.
Yes, and the first question goes to TV4.
Thank you. Foreign Secretary, if Sweden is not ratified by Turkey by Vilnius, how problematic is that for NATO, in your view? And also, given that Sweden considers that it has fulfilled all requirements already in this memorandum with Turkey, are you willing to work within NATO to make this prospect more interesting, so to say, for Turkey? And what are you willing to do?
Well, I think everyone can see how swiftly and decisively Sweden and the Swedish government have acted in response to the concerns that were put forward by one of the NATO allies. And I think that that is something which we should all recognise. And the point remains that Sweden, as part of NATO, makes NATO stronger, makes NATO allies safer, and that means all allies. And this is true of Turkey as it is of the other members. The UK's position is long-standing, that the value of Sweden's membership of NATO stands alone, and it is clear and obvious. Ultimately, it is a bilateral issue between Sweden and Turkey in terms of addressing the points that Turkey have raised and that Sweden as a nation has responded to. But ultimately, this is about our collective security, the strength of our defensive alliance, and as I say, through the work that we've done over now best part of a decade with Sweden through the Joint Expeditionary Force, I know, and I have said publicly, and I will say repeatedly, Sweden is a good partner, will be a fantastic ally, and all of the allies within NATO will be made safer and stronger by their membership. That's what we'll work towards. The sooner that it can happen, the better it is for all of us. Remind me, the second part of the question was what we will do. Look, we will keep making the case. We will keep making the case that it is in our interest that this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. So what we have done, we will continue doing up until the point that we have that flag-raising ceremony. And then once we've had that flag-raising ceremony, we will, of course, expect Sweden to work hard, as I have no doubt they will, on our shared defence across the Euro-Atlantic region. Thank you.
And the next question is to TT.
Thank you. A question to both Mr. Billström and Mr. Cleverly regarding the events taking place in Russia the last couple of days. What would be a preferable outcome of the events? A change in leadership or something else?
Well, I'll start by saying that I think that we don't really have a reason to speculate overly about this. This is, after all, something which has taken place in Russia. It is a domestic, it's an internal affair, and I think that we should regard it as such. For myself, I think also that we should be very cautious about the fact that the thing which we should be focused on is Ukraine and not Russia. It is Ukraine's victory in the battlefield that will secure an outcome of this war, that will re-establish the territorial integrity of Ukraine, reaffirm its sovereignty, and see to it that the people of Ukraine is relieved of the terrible burden that this war, this illegal aggression by Russia against Ukraine has put on their shoulders. This is the aim of the Swedish government, and I think that we are very well aligned on this as well, although I leave it to Foreign Secretary Cleverly to outline the position of the UK.
Well, as I said in my opening remarks, we find ourselves regularly and effortlessly in alignment with Sweden on so many issues, and I think the response that the Foreign Minister made very closely echoes the words that I spoke yesterday in the British Parliament. Ultimately, this is an internal Russian matter. The leadership of the Russian Federation is a decision exclusively for the Russian people. I don't think it's healthy or useful to speculate about what this might mean for the leadership of Russia, and therefore I won't be doing so. But also, it's important that we focus on what we have committed to, which is supporting Ukraine in the recovery of their land, the self-defense against this illegal and unprovoked Russian attack, and also to work together on the recovery and the rebuilding once this war is over. But one thing I would note, and I think is incredibly important the world listens to this, is that one of Vladimir Putin's closest former allies, one of his protégés, said publicly that the excuses that Vladimir Putin used to justify his invasion of Ukraine were completely illegitimate, that there was no risk to Russia, there was no rationale, there was no legitimacy for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So I think the world should reflect on that, but we will stay focused on the job at hand, which is supporting Ukraine in its self-defense and subsequent recovery.
And the next question is from Reuters, and it's to the Foreign Secretary. Have you spoken directly with your Turkish counterpart regarding Sweden's NATO accession? And if so, what indications did they give you about approving the application in time for the Vilnius summit? If not, is there a need for a plan B around the timing of Sweden's accession?
Well, I suppose I've kind of partially answered this. Of course, I have had the opportunity to speak with the new Turkish foreign minister, and of course, whilst I'm not going to go into the details of what was a private conversation, the UK has made its position clear that we regard Sweden as a invaluable member of the alliance, and we'll work to ensure that Sweden is a full member of the alliance as quickly as possible. And we have said regularly and publicly that it's in Turkey's interest that Sweden becomes a member of the alliance and does so quickly. So we will continue to make the case for a united and strong NATO as a defensive alliance of friends, and that it is in, as I say, all our interests that Sweden becomes a member sooner rather than later, and that position will continue until that day comes to pass.
So this concludes the press conference.